Fight, 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 fight.
Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota, and I'm way zoomed in. Whoa, taking up the whole damn screen. What's up, guys? How you doing? How's life treating you? I hope it's doing well. I hope it's doing well for everybody out there. We are here. It's Tuesday, I guess. Hold on, I'm getting my my windows all lined up. Been busy doing stuff. A bunch of stuff I don't want to do. One of the things I'll have to talk about in a little bit, I guess. But yeah, you know, God, where is everything is out of sorts here. Anyway, yeah, so what's up? The show tonight, we've got a couple different topics. We've got, you know, this is obviously for the clickbait, right? Amber Heard may have to pay more. I mean, can we grift off of Amber Heard a little harder? The answer is always yes. Always yes. But in this particular instance, we're going to talk about her ongoing legal fight, which is no longer against Johnny Depp. That thing is done. Her legal fight now is with her insurance company because she wants the insurance company to pay for her legal team. And the insurance company is like, no, we had our own legal team that you could have hired and you chose not to. So fuck off. Right? So that's Amber Heard's new legal woes. We'll talk about that. She's run into a little bit of a hurdle there. Do we even death penalty? Do you guys remember? I think it was 2017. Find out when we get to the story. A guy drove like a big fucking truck onto a bike path in New York City and ran over a bunch of people. It's not Daryl Brooks. This is some guy who has, you know, a beard and says hello or whatever. I mean, no relation to the act at all. And certainly it's a truck of peace that he was driving and he just happened to run over a bunch of cyclists and then he was taken into custody. They finally went to the jury on the question of whether or not he gets the death penalty for murdering like 6 people. And the answer is no. No, he does not. And you guys may know my position. I'm generally opposed to the death penalty as a principled matter because I don't have faith in the state to do it right. But there are certain cases where it's like, well, I mean, we kind of know, like, for sure that this is the person. There's not like a miscarriage of justice risk with the guy who ran over a bunch of cyclists in the name of Allah on a bike path in like a FedEx truck or whatever. Like it's not like that's ambiguous. It's not like, well, maybe it wasn't him. There's no semen evidence. There probably even was, right? So the question, I guess, I want to have a little philosophical self-discussion about the death penalty surrounding that case. Because, again, my personal principled stance is I don't like the state killing people. I'm really not a big fan of it because I see how much the state gets wrong. And then we'll talk a little bit about a personal mission of mine, and that is to get a certain artist on the show because I think he's a critically important voice to a bunch of people. And that guy is Ronnie Radke, who is the lead singer of Falling in Reverse. And Falling in Reverse is about to go on tour this year. And one of the bands is this Canadian band. And like pure Canadians, they received a little bit of pressure online when the tour was announced. And they have kind of quietly backed out of the tour. there's much speculation over what it's about. But of course, along with that speculation comes rehashed statements of Ronnie Radke, who is he's a free speech guy, and he's a little rough around the edges, kind of like someone else I know. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we'll probably have some other stuff thrown in because, well, it's a show, and the show has variety and laughs and whatever comes up, you know. So we're going to talk about that as we go, and see if we can figure this stuff out. But I definitely want to talk about Ronnie Radke's issues, because his issues, I mean, I can see mirrors of what he faces with many of the people that I face as well, or hang out with as well. Give me just a second. What's up, lady? You need a hug? Okay, come here. You're not on camera. Don't worry. I love you. Anyway, back to back to that. So Ronnie Radke is a guy who, you know, he's going through the same sort of issues that many of the people that I talk to with regularity are going through, in that something they say is so offensive to the sensibility. Another one. Good night. Come give me a hug. Yes. Come here. Give me a hug and then get out of here, you stinker.
I just love you so much. I wanted to say goodnight.
Yeah, I love you so much too.
Tomorrow, I love you.
I love you. See you tomorrow. No, that light can stay on. Just close my door, please. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Those are my two youngest. The first one that came in was, she was the terror. And the second one was my 5-year-old. They're both adorable. So anyway, the point I was trying to make, I don't see any other kids at my door. The oldest think I'm not cool anymore, or whatever. Thank God. Is that, you know, I walk in this world of people who say things, and those things tend to bother other people. And so Ronnie Radke is going with that. And the typical solution that a reasonable person has is that when someone says something that bothers you, you have two options. You can engage it, the speech with the person, or you can just like not care at all because it doesn't affect you. Like if someone says something you don't like and you're like, I don't like that. And you're like, wait, oh, well, yeah, I guess that's it, right? I didn't like it. And now it's done. Cool. My life is better. That's how normal, rational people kind of do that. Or you say, hey, you know, this guy's wrong on this thing, and you say it. But there's this new trend for unreasonable people, and that is to go, he said a thing I don't like, therefore he can't work. Which is a weird thing. Like when you really get down to it, that's a strange thing, right? Like, I didn't like what this guy said. No job. He can't possibly make money. Like, that would be insane. Why would we let someone who disagrees with me have an income? So that's, you know, that's this weird sort of thing that's been going on for the past several years. And we're going to talk about it. And I think, you know, the first time I was introduced to Falling in Reverse, it was the song Zombified, which speaks exactly to this concept that we're being dumbed down as a society. We're not able to tolerate different opinions. We're not able to tolerate different perspectives. And we're certainly not able to tolerate political disagreement. And the only answer is to dumb us down into these zombies whose entire job is to do the bidding of one political entity to cancel people in the other political entity and cause them harm for their views. Because you have to punish someone to get them to your side. That's the best way to do it is to punish someone. So I really want to talk to Ronnie Radke at some point. So I'm going to start my quiet, slow, inexorable campaign to try and get his attention. And like Hugh Jackman, it starts tonight. It starts tonight, or whatever. But no, I'll try and find a way to get in touch with him. I've reached out a couple times, but eventually maybe it'll happen, because I think he's probably got some fascinating insight into what speech means, and what speech means in the realm of creation and of artistic expression, because that's where speech is critical in artistic expression. Okay, next things next. I guess I'll announce this. Some people have already seen it. I've been kind of holding off on doing this for as long as I was really kind of able to. But where did it go? Where is it? Okay, I guess I'll just pull it up then. Oh, no. Probably share this a couple times today, but here we go, guys. The thing I was trying to not do, but end up doing here is this is my give, send, go. I'm fighting a bogus lawsuit from an insane moron. And thank you so much to people who have already donated and shared this campaign. Look, here's the deal. Montegraph is suing me, as you guys know. I'm trying to give you updates as they happen. We're in kind of a holding pattern until April 10th, when our next hearing is. There's not really much to do in the meantime. I think my lawyer will be filing a reply brief at some point, but I'm not involved in that, other than discussing with my lawyer, stuff like giving them information, etc. And they're kind of in charge of the strategy. And I don't really want to know much of the strategy, because I want to talk about the lawsuit without dealing with that. So I have my impressions of documents and stuff like that, but I try and stay out of those discussions as often as possible, unless I'm critically needed. However, here's the reality. I mean, I guess I could just read the thing I wrote. I'll read it. So, hey, what's up, guys? This is Nick Ricada of Ricada Law, small law firm in central Minnesota. How's it going? If you're here, you probably already know about my plight. A lunatic internet weirdo named Montegraph, aka Steve Quest, is suing me with a frivolous lawsuit designed to silence my speech and impact my ability to do what I love, making people laugh at stupid legal and cultural topics. This started with Mr. Medicare back in 2019. He introduced me to Montegraph, who was engaged in another loser of an anti-speech lawsuit against someone named Morphinos. Medicare and I laughed at the case and the bogus nature of the claims Montegraph was bringing, and delved into the storied internet history of this strange man. Montegraph waged a meme war against me, but then ultimately disappeared for a couple of years. When I was wrongly banned from YouTube, Montegraph returned, claiming victory, and that I would never return to YouTube. As I deal with many trolls, I responded by relaying some of Montegraph's well-documented past. Now he's sued me for defamation, which is interesting because it requires things said to be false. I decided to take the lawsuit seriously and hired one of the best defamation lawyers out there, Mark Randazza, a true champion of free speech. Mark and I have a tepid history, but he took on the opportunity to defend speech while I took on the opportunity to be his most difficult client, and that roster is impressive. Certainly. All of that to say, legal bills for a top-tier law firm are insane, even on a frivolous suit. I've tried to help out many people over my time broadcasting, and I'm genuinely asking people to help me if they can spare it. Please, please do not put yourself in any financial peril or hardship on my behalf. Always take care of yourself and your family first. However, if you're so inclined, I would appreciate any assistance in defraying these legal bills. I also may have to pay for Mark's therapy or hypnotic mind wipe when all is said and done. I appreciate this community and everything it's done for me and my family. Thank you for your support. If you're unable to contribute financially, please consider sharing this campaign and spreading the word. Thanks, y'all. See you every weeknight at 11 p.m. Central. Peace. Peace. So That's what we've got here. Look, I don't even know, because I get an invoice every month, how deep into this thing I am, but it's very, very expensive. It's very expensive to fight even a frivolous lawsuit when you do it correctly. So, unfortunately, I'm asking for a little bit of help. But, if you do not want to, please don't. Please don't. I'm not going to come out here and say I will never survive without your help or anything like that. The internet has been very, very good to me, and this community has been wonderful to me. So I don't want to ever misrepresent things. I'm not going broke. I'm not poor. I'm not dying. I'm not going to lose my house or something. At this point, I mean, I guess who knows what the future holds, but in reality, any little bit helps quite a bit, and it helps me immensely because it is very, very expensive. So, thank you for your consideration. It's givesendgo.com/Recato Law. I try to make it as easy for people to find it as possible, and really only to find people who would be interested in helping out with that. So there you go. Please consider sharing that and spreading the word. Thank you all again who have supported me. And yeah, see, we're already at $1,189. So I really appreciate that. Thank you guys for the help. Triptych asks a very important question. If Nick wins and Monty has to cover his legal costs, does that mean he has to pay back the chat and donors? No, that's not how that works. One, I don't know how I would do that practically. But two, the reality is that Monty, even if I get a fee award against Monty, it's almost impossible that he'll pay any of it. And that's the problem when you weaponize the legal system against people, is how do I make a broke weirdo pay for the damage that they cause? There's really not much you can do. So yeah, but what I will try and do is, especially if I am able to defray the cost, I mean, that's going back into the show, into doing live events, into doing other things related to the show that I've got planned for this year and next year and the next year and the next year. So, yeah, that's the reality of it. So again, thanks. If you don't want to help, please do not. I do not want help from people who have no inclination to help, and I don't want help from people who would put any financial stress on them at all. Please, you're sharing or just reading it over and going, hey, I support you, buddy. That's immense to me. Really, really is. So thank you. Okay. So that said, it's uncomfortable. I hate asking for help. I really do. It's not in my character to ask for anything from me. Randall Gully says, do you agree with DeSantis stripping a liquor license over a drag show with kids? Kind of reminds me of the COVID lockdowns. I don't like the weaponization of things like a liquor license. If they broke a law, if they violated something and they need to be fined, fine them. That's fine. Like, there's a process for that. I don't like the use of administrative tools to implement policy because, first of all, I don't think a liquor license is real. I don't think that a liquor license is something that should even exist. I think if your business wants to sell liquor and you are following, you follow the law that exists about, over 21, et cetera, then that should be that. That should be how it goes. But the government loves its lists, and liquor licensing is the way to put it on a list. In the same way, I disagree with firearms licenses. I disagree with pretty much any licensing scheme by the government. I don't think that they're proper. And so I certainly don't like the weaponization of them as a tool. At the same time, stop doing these damn drag shows to kids. Maybe, especially if that's the law of your state. But yeah, I'm just never a big fan of the state wielding a bogus administrative procedure over other people. So we'll see. I'm sure they'll resolve it somehow. You know, they'll make their own whatchamacallit. I'm sure they'll make their apology or whatever, get their liquor license restored, and Ron DeSantis can parade it around as a victory. And, you know, it will be a victory at that point. So, you know, we'll see. But it's just something else for people to bitch about on either side of the issue. Master Lions gifted 5 Ricada Law memberships. Thank you. And Kayla has spent a year at super lawyer status as Jesus, an entire year. Cheers, y'all. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Cheers to you. Dirk Diggler says lay off on the $500 bottles of whiskey. Dude, I didn't buy those. Those are gifts. Let's see. Nick, watch the Babylon Bee Awards if you haven't already today. Oh, maybe. All right, here we go. Okay, so let's get into this Amber Heard thing. This is good times. Speaking of defamation lawsuits, where are we? Holy crap. Here we go. Here we go. Oh my goodness. This is from Courthouse News Service just a couple days ago. Get rid of that. There we go. So Amber Heard's bid to get insured to pay for defamation defense looks shaky. A federal judge tentatively threw out claims that her insurer should have paid for the legal team she hired instead of the one the insurer had appointed. So actress Amber Heard, we'll take a peek at this tentative ruling. Oh, beautiful. Oh, it's an in-chambers. Okay. All right. We'll actually read through this in a minute. Maybe striking out in her attempt to get one of her insurance companies to reimburse her for hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal costs to defend the defamation lawsuit by her husband, Johnny Depp. U.S. District Judge George Wu in L.A. issued a tentative ruling dismissing Heard's breach of contract and breach of the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing claims against New York Marine and General Insurance ahead of a Monday hearing. The Aquaman star had brought the counterclaims in a lawsuit by New York Marine filed last year. The insurer seeks a ruling that it shouldn't have to pay Heard under the $1 million policy, either for her legal costs or the judgment against her, because her liability for defamation was the result of a willful act by her. Now, you would probably, if you followed along with this, have heard me talk about this. I know Law and Lumber has talked about this. I'm sure several other legal commentators have done this as well. It was part of the whole discussion since Amber Heard, or since Johnny Depp was a public figure. A finding of defamation against him requires a showing of actual malice, which is knowledge of the falsity or reckless disregard for the truth, which fulfills basically as a de jure, as a matter of law. It fulfills the willfulness requirement of a willful tort. It's intentional. You're not negligently lying, right? If you're just defaming someone who's not a public figure, then you have the negligence standard. So you can accidentally sort of defame someone. If you're talking about a public figure and you have to get to that knowledge of the falsity or reckless disregard for the truth, you have either, since you have knowledge, you're lying about it, or with reckless disregard, you're trying to skirt around the easy ability for you to find this out, or your normal process that would allow you to find this out. Reckless disregard is kind of a weird thing, but it really applies heavily to journalists who have a journalistic standard that they apply to most stories, but like don't apply it on this particular story. That would be reckless disregard, when they don't want to find out the truth and they would have the normal means to do so and a normal process of doing so and ignore that process. That's what that reckless disregard kind of looks like. That's one way to sort of picture it. But it makes this into a willful act because you're choosing to lie at this point. You know it's wrong. You're choosing to relay the known falsehood. The way insurance policies work is they cover negligence. They cover accidents. They cover negligence. They cover things that you're not intending to do. But insurance companies aren't in the business of paying out on your demand, right? So if you intentionally do something that's going to cost an insurance company $1 million, they're going to go, no, you did that on purpose. You don't get to make us pay. We're here as insurance. We're not here as a bank account. You didn't make a deposit that you're withdrawing. And so they don't pay out for willful or wanton acts. It's kind of there's interesting homeowners insurance questions when it comes to things like assaults and injuries on property that go from one person to another. You need to show like enough of an act to draw liability, but not enough of an act to get into that willful aspect of it. Okay, so here we go. Heard in response claims New York Marine reneged on its obligation to defend her under the insurance policy that included comprehensive personal liability coverage. Specifically, she says the insurer had reserved its right to deny coverage on the basis that she behaved intentionally when purportedly defaming Depp, and as such, had created a conflict of interest that obligated her to retain independent counsel rather than the lawyers the insurer had appointed to defend her. New York Marine's appointed counsel withdrew from the case before it went to trial last year in Virginia, and according to Wu's tentative ruling, New York Marine agreed to reimburse Heard's other insurer, Travelers Commercial Insurance, for some of the money it paid towards Heard's defense in the Depp case, but hasn't done so. According to the insurer, its appointed lawyers in the Depp case were the same ones that were already representing Heard, and when she decided to retain another legal team, it was no longer required to pay for her defense. And this is critical if you're dealing with your insurance company, and they are covering your legal fees, you need to make sure that the hiring of a new legal team will not impact your ability to be reimbursed. Now, you typically do that is conferring with them ahead of time, making sure that the legal fees are being justified, that that the legal team you're bringing on has some sort of specialty, something they can really add that is going to protect the insurer's interests, as well as working with the insurer's team. So, sometimes they'll say no, and you may have to choose to not have the insurance. If you don't think the insurance attorneys are going to do the right job, like if you're Amber Heard, you probably don't want the insurance attorney team, in all honesty, not because they're defective or deficient in any way. I mean, Elaine wasn't any better, and Rottenborn didn't do her too many favors, but I don't imagine that any other group of attorneys would do particularly worse than them. However, presumably you'd want to hire a firm that deals with high-profile defamation cases between celebrities. Like, that's the kind of expertise that you would want. And Amber Heard should have negotiated with her insurance company ahead of time saying, look, I got this specialized team who deals with this thing. That's who we need to go with. Now, I don't think she had that. For whatever reason she hired this team, I don't know. But I don't think she had a team that was competent to represent her, honestly. Wu referred to a decision he issued last year in a related lawsuit between Travelers and New York Marine over who had to pay what for Heard's defense. In that case, the judge had concluded that in Virginia, where the trial was held, unlike in places such as California, the attorney an insurer has appointed to represent an insured has only one client under state law, the insured. As such, the Virginia lawyer that the insurer had appointed had no conflict of interest, according to the judge, and New York Marine had no obligation to reimburse Travelers for her new legal team. Okay, so this is critical. Amber's argument is that The attorney for the that the insurance company appoints is representing both her and the insurance company, which creates a conflict of interest because their interests are disparate, right? The insurance company doesn't want to pay, and Amber wants them to pay. Very important. It's very, very important thing. And an attorney representing the insurance company wants to get a minimal cost for the insurer, whereas an attorney representing Amber Heard wants to get the best result for their client. So she claimed there was a conflict of interest, but under Virginia law, that's not true. Even though the insurance company is appointing the attorney, the insured is the sole client, and the insurance company's concerns are gone. The insurance company's concerns are satisfied by their appointment of the attorney. So that's how their interests are taken care of. And then once that happens, the client becomes the primary focus of the attorney at that point. They are the only concern for that attorney. They're the only client, and therefore you don't have a conflict because they're no longer worrying about the insurance company. The insurance company doesn't have a say in the defense. They don't get to send a representative and say, well, why don't we do this or try this? Why don't we settle here, for example? They don't get that. Master Lions gifted 10 Mercado Law memberships. Thank you very much. Twisted Life says, only been 9 months. Hell, it feels like longer. Keep up the good fight and keep up the great whiskey recommendations. Thank you. Phil Harrington says, how is Monty paying for his lawyer? Is it being done pro bono? I do not have those details yet. But depending on how this goes, believe me, I'm going to try and find out. Okay, in the end, even assuming the court would be open to the possibility of effectively reconsidering the decision it issued in the Travelers' action over 14 months ago, Heard has not persuaded it that it should do so, Wu said. Heard's lawyer in the insurance lawsuit didn't respond to a request for comment on the tentative ruling by press time. A Virginia jury awarded Depp $10 million in compensatory damages and another $5 million in punitive damages after finding the Pirates of the Caribbean actor had been defamed by an op-ed in the Washington Post. In the piece, Heard said she'd become a public figure representing domestic abuse and pinpointed a period 2 years earlier in 2016 when she'd taken out a temporary restraining order against then-husband Depp. The former couple settled in December for $1 million. So jury verdict happened. It was effectively an award of like $8.25 million for Depp because there was a cross-claim or a counterclaim from Amber Heard that Depp defamed her. She got $2 million on that. So that reduces the $10 million, and the $5 million was reduced to about, I think it was $250,000, which is the statutory maximum for punitive damages in Virginia. But I might have that 250,000 number wrong because I haven't looked at it in a while. But all of that award goes out the window because they settled on $1 million from Amber to Johnny, $1 million, which he promised to give to a charity or something like that. Who made money in the Depp Heard lawsuits? All of the lawyers did, which is how it normally goes. That's how these things normally go. It was $350K. Okay, $350K. I knew it was somewhere in there. I just couldn't remember the exact number. Master Lions with a pink donation. Thank you so much. Says cheers to you, Nick, and everyone in the chat. Hey, thanks, brother. Cheers to you too. I'll take a little sip for that. And then we've got MMO Mastercraft says, once Monty's retard lawsuit gets dismissed, that will stop him from trying to sue you again and again just to harass you and ruin you. Can a judge order him to leave you alone? Yes. If we get the case dismissed, and Monty tries to sue again, that could lead to real problems for him. It could also lead to a very, very fast dismissal, as the issues would already be adjudicated. Master Lions dropped another 10 memberships. Dude, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. If you guys happen to get a whatchamacallit. If you happen to get a membership from Master Lions, please drop him a thank you. Very cool of him to do that. Okay. Cheers, Master Lions. But yes, MMO Mastercraft. A judge can't, at the outset, can't automatically order someone. Like if I win, to further answer your question, if I win the lawsuit, they can't order Montegraph to leave me alone. Montegraph has a right to free speech. And Montegraph has a right to petition a court or his government for redress of grievances, he has that right to do that. Now, if he were to continually file frivolous lawsuits, then he could be labeled a vexatious litigant. But it's not an easy thing to make someone into a vexatious litigant. It should maybe be easier, but it's really difficult because we really, really hold a lot of value in people's right to ask the court to intervene when they find that justice is not being served, right? Like we want that. We want people to be able to go to the courts with confidence that they can have their issues heard. The punishment for that, though, is that we get some crazies who get to make people's lives, miserable. They get to cost them tons of money, absolute fucking tons of money, just for the, because they can do that to someone else. So, and if you don't have anything to take, like as the plaintiff, as Montegraph in this case, and you can find a sucker of a lawyer to take your case for whatever pocket lint that Monty is going to pay him, then you can cause someone a whole lot of trouble. It really sucks. That's the system that we have, though. So here we go. Let's pop over here real quick. This is an in-chambers tentative ruling. I don't know that we need to go through the whole thing. Here's the factual background. I think the article actually did a pretty damn good job of covering this. Let's real quickly talk about this, because I think this is an important part of contract law that we have not really, I talk about it from time to time. We have not really delved too far into this as a society and the tool that it is against companies like big tech. That's where the real benefit of all this is. It's called the Covenant of Good Faith and Fair Dealing. Now, many states have an implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing in their as part of their law. And what that means is that every contract that is executed in that state has this covenant, a promise, an agreement between both parties. And that agreement says, each party says, I am going to do my best to make this contract mutually beneficial for me and the other person. So it's not a hostile at arm's length contract. The understanding is that working for the benefit of both parties benefits each party individually, right? Now, what that means is that if there's an issue or something like that, you should be trying to resolve it. You should be working for the betterment of the contract, not trying to weasel your way into a superior position to the other party. So with an insurance company, right? Insurance companies are big companies. They're massive. They have billions of dollars. And then they're insuring someone who's usually at a really bad spot. If you're invoking insurance, it's usually because there's something that has happened that is some level of catastrophic. You probably can't afford it, and you need the help of the moneyed company that you paid for just such an occasion. But the insurance company has a lot of leverage. They have the money that you want, and they have a lot of money to defend any of your claims that you might take against them, and you might not have that. So the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing says, no. The insurance company is obligated to not just take advantage of their power, but to make this contract work for me as well as them. And that will be good business all around. And it really promotes a healthy business environment, which it does, right? You don't want like every business trying to weasel their way out of their agreements, but getting the benefit of those agreements without working to fulfill it. The reason I bring this up and the reason I talk about this is because I think that the covenant of good faith and fair dealing actually is most critically going to apply to tech companies over the next couple of years. As we start seeing the tech companies rely on these end user license agreements, these terms and conditions pages that we all have to click OK to, right? but then never actually do what they say they're going to do, right? They enforce stuff against you, but they don't do things in your benefit. They don't actually give you access to the services like they say they will, as long as you follow the rules, or they interpret the rules specifically against you rather than giving you any sort of process to try and come to an understanding or to effectively advocate for why you didn't violate a rule, any of that stuff. I think the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, or an express covenant of good faith and fair dealing in some states, I think that those will be the keys to actually fighting big tech as we start to see more and more big tech lawsuits. So there's that. That's why I think that implied covenant is really important. Now, in this case, the insurance company did their job. They did not violate their covenant. They appointed counsel to Amber Heard. They said, here is counsel to deal with your defamation lawsuit. Now, Amber may have had disagreements about the quality of that counsel, the experience of that counsel, etc. It doesn't look like she did anything to rectify that. It looks like she just went and hired her own. So, in this case, I don't think that Amber Heard had a good claim under it, but I do think that it is the source of some claims that we'll be seeing over the next couple years. Sweet Pea says, of the many YouTubers I watch, you're the only one that my boyfriend actually likes. We finally found a mutual interest. Thanks, Nick. P.S. You ever been to Owatonna? I have been to Owatonna. Not very often, but yes, I have been there. It's your hometown. Cool. Cool. Yeah, I've been there. Cheers. Thank you so much. I'm glad to provide mutual entertainment for you guys. And we have Timothy 208 says, I have some mortgage-backed securities issued from SVB to sell. Who wants a piece of this action? No, I'm gonna withhold on that one, fam. I'm gonna hold back. Dixon Butts says, the wife told me that I need to stop wasting money, so here's 20. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I hope a chat to me is never a waste. I hope it always provides at least a chuckle. Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to spend too much time on the Amber Heard thing. I think we got the general gist of what's going on with Amber Heard. Lots of bad choices from Amber Heard from jump and all the way through this. Really, someone with her level of income, notoriety, fame should have had some people better advising her on how to proceed. That's what should have happened, because she handled this thing wrong from jump in 2016 or whenever. Well, 2016 and then 2018, and then going in through this lawsuit. Everything she did was absolutely incorrect, and she paid for it, $1 million. I guess. Presumably, she actually paid this time. Maybe she just pledged it. I don't know. Oh, goodness gracious. But what I do know is she would have felt much better. She would have felt much better. She simply would have tried Field of Greens. Fieldofgreens.com, promo code knows. This is from Brick House Nutrition. And this is how you get your servings of fruits and vegetables in a day. And by vegetables, I don't mean Stephen Hawking. I mean the real kind that give you nutrition. So here you go. You take your little water bottle, shaker of water. You dump in 1 scoop, which I think is 10 grams of ground up fruits and veggies. You put the cap on to this thing. And it's organic. I think it's vegan, and it's gluten-free. So it's all of the gay things that you could possibly need. But the reason it's vegan and gluten-free is because it's just fucking vegetables, right? You shouldn't have gluten or meat in vegetables. And the reason it's organic is because, well, I guess that kind of reduces the amount of chemicals that you would eat. I don't know. I'm not big on the organic thing. I don't particularly care about vegan. And I don't particularly care about it being gluten-free. I mean, those two things just make sense with fruit and vegetables in general. But what I can tell you is that this stuff's pretty good. I like it. I'm a big fan of it. And I try to drink 2 of these a day. But yeah, you can go to fieldofgreens.com, use promo code NOSE. The one I'm eating, eating, it's kind of eating with liquid. I don't know. Drinking right now is the organic energy one. It's kind of the darker green. And I don't know what the flavor is. I guess it's their default flavor. It's good though. I like it. And it gives you a little boost of some natural caffeine. If you're one of those people who needs caffeine to get through your day, coffee, sodas, whatever, this is a great option for you. So check out fieldofgreens.com and use promo code NOSE to get a little bit off of your order. And a big thanks for them for being a sponsor of the show, of course. No vodka in it tonight. Look, I wasn't the biggest fan of the vodka in there. But you know, to each their own. To each their own. All right. With that, let's get to this next subject. The death penalty. We also have an Illinois subject I may talk about. Illinois is making all the right moves. Have you guys seen? So they just signed into law that your workplace is required to give you vacation time. No reasons, no questions asked at all. No matter the size of the employer. Pretty nuts. Didn't I say it was great? I don't know. Maybe. If you like vodka. All right, so here we go. New York City Bike Path Terrorist to serve life in prison after jury fails to reach a unanimous decision on the death penalty. How? How do you... Oh, he's a manlet. Oh, my God. How do you fail to reach a decision on the death penalty in this case? So this is a terrorist convicted of committing a 2017 attack for ISIS that killed 8 on a New York City bike path will serve life in prison. Life in prison after a jury said Monday it could not reach a unanimous decision on the death penalty. I mean, how? And this is coming from me, principally opposed to the death penalty. As a matter of course, I am opposed to the death penalty on the principle that I do not trust the state to competently decide who it should kill normally. But let's put a little caveat in there. This guy drove a fucking truck down a bike path to run over cyclists and kill them in the name of ISIS. We can kill this guy. Like, we can just go ahead and, like, this guy can get the death penalty. That would be fine. It's not like a moral conflict for me. That's not a problem that I have. Like, I have a problem when there's serious evidentiary questions about, you know, a murder, like the whodunit, like Alec Murdaugh. It's life in prison, fine. They didn't go for the death penalty, but they could have. I don't think a death penalty would have been appropriate. I'm not convinced that Alec Murdaugh was even properly found guilty, personally. But that aside, even if he was properly found guilty, I think there would be enough questions, even if we had beyond a reasonable doubt that he did it. I think there's enough questions remaining to say, I'm not sure about a death penalty in that case. This guy, though, I'm okay with the death penalty for this guy, for someone who commits a terrorist attack on U.S. soil in the name of ISIS. Like, he's lucky to be alive in the first place. Counterpoint, cyclists are the roaches of the road. He wasn't on the road. He was on a bike path. Seyfulo Saipov, I don't know how to say his name, effectively learned his sentence when the jury in the penalty phase of this trial in Manhattan federal court told a judge that it was unable to reach an undivided decision favoring the death penalty on any of the 9 capital counts it was asked to consider. A unanimous decision would have been required to sentence Saipov to death in the first death penalty trial under the Biden administration. So remember, this is a federal trial. So even if a state like New York, for example, I don't know, does New York even have a death penalty? They might not. Yeah, New York does not have a death penalty since 1976, I believe. Yeah, 1977, New York's High Court effectively struck down the death penalty for the murder of a police officer or a correctional officer, and 1984 ruling struck down capital punishment for murders committed by inmates serving life sentences, effectively abolishing New York's death penalty. They have not executed anyone in New York since 1976. But this is a federal crime. This is a federal act of terrorism. So federal acts of terrorism fall under federal law, and that means that he could have gotten the death penalty even though it was in New York because it was a federal crime. And in my opinion, he should have it. He should have the death penalty. Hartman says, as cyclists are the only people that rival state employees and cats in evil power levels, I'm torn on this one. Yes, I do see the dilemma because everybody hates cyclists on the road, right? We really do. They're annoying. They go slow. They get in front of you at a stoplight and you have to wait for them. They're sitting there like this with their arm out, waiting to go so they can turn or whatever. I got it. They wear stupid tight pants and they look like idiots. Okay. But put that aside for a minute and just remember, this guy killed Americans in the name of ISIS. Fuck him. Unanimous decision would have been required. Yeah. Absent the death penalty. Oh, shit. The statutorily mandated sentence for the convictions is life in prison, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York said. U.S. District Judge Vernon Broderick did not immediately impose the mandated sentence Monday, said an official sentencing date will be scheduled. Broderick read the jury's full verdict form in court, accepted the jury's decision, and excused the panel. Saipov shook his lawyer's hand before being let out of the courtroom. Jury convicted him in January on all counts against him for the fatal terror attack he committed on Halloween in 2017. He drove a rented U-Haul truck into cyclists and pedestrians on Manhattan's West Side Bike Path, then crashed the vehicle into a school bus, authorities said. After leaving the truck while brandishing a pellet gun and a paintball gun, he was shot by a New York Police Department officer and taken into custody. This evil act was fueled by Saipov's allegiance to ISIS, an allegiance which Saipov proudly maintained after the attack and up through his trial. Today, a jury has declined to authorize the death penalty for Saipov, and accordingly, the defendant will be subject to a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, U.S. Attorney Damian Williams said Monday. He's expected to serve his life sentence at the Federal Bureau of Prisons ADX facility in Florence, Colorado, in solitary confinement at least 22 hours a day, his attorney said during trial. So if you think he's going to have a bad time in Gen Pop or whatever, nope. He's going to get a solo room, ladies and gentlemen. 22 hours a day. He'll be protected. He'll be protected from the other inmates by your tax dollars. But of course, he won't be having a fun time. I'm not trying to represent prison as like fun when you're in solitary. The jury convicted him in January of counts of murder in aid of racketeering activity, assault with a dangerous weapon, attempted murder in aid of racketeering activity, attempted murder in aid of racketeering activity, provision of material support to ISIS, and violence and destruction of a motor vehicle. Conviction triggered a penalty phase of the trial. The jury started deliberating about the sentence on Wednesday. They expressed in a note just after 2 p.m. Monday it was unable to reach a unanimous decision favoring the death penalty. Prosecutors asked that the court poll the jurors as to whether they were fully satisfied if no further deliberations were to be had. While Saipov's defense counsel objected to this approach and asked the judge to accept their verdict, Broderick ruled he would not poll the jury. Per the judge's instructions, the jury did not specify on the verdict form how many panel members were in favor of or against imposing the death penalty. So yet again, we have this conflict. At least for me, it's a conflict. The principled stance against the death penalty. I'm just not a fan of the state killing anybody. And if you guys are, that's fine. I do not say, importantly, I do not think that the state does not have the power to kill people. I think it absolutely does. I think the death penalty is constitutional. I think the death penalty is well within the scope of American jurisprudence. I have no legal problem with the death penalty. I can't think of a good argument against it. It's been around since the founding. It is certainly not cruel or unusual punishment as it was understood at the drafting of the Constitution. It would be, well, like a death penalty was actually the punishment for all of the felonies that existed at the time. This would be normal, not cruel and unusual, nothing special about it. And in fact, I think our notions of cruel and unusual death penalties are completely backwards. I think, I think a bullet to the back of the head or decapitation are actually probably more humane ways of death penalty dealing than lethal injection, which takes a long time and is apparently horrifying. But that aside, I don't trust the state to lay a bike path down. Like, I don't trust the state to make a sidewalk. I don't trust the state to spend $150 appropriately. I have real trouble trusting the state in implementing death penalties, for the most part. But yet there's certain crimes. This one, Nicholas Cruz, right? The Florida school shooter. Any school shooters, church shooters, mass killers who are doing this openly, obviously, they're the ones doing it. Convicting them seems like death penalty makes sense. We know they're the person who did it. There's not, like, outside of maybe insanity, and I guess we don't execute the insane for some reason. But outside of maybe insanity, I'm not sure what defense against the death penalty there is for a Nicholas Cruz or a whatever halal name this guy has. What was his fucking name? Sayfullo Saipov. What defense? Why would we spare this guy? What is the purpose of keeping him around? That's my question. And that would be if I could ask the jurors in that case who were against the death penalty is, what is your hang up here? And I would wager that those jurors have just a moral opposition to the death penalty, period. I think that is probably where that stems from. Either it might be, someone said, Byfront says it's a religion thing. Maybe it's a religion thing. Maybe they're principled uber libertarians or anarchists. I have no idea what it is. I think my sort of libertarian distrust of the state is where mine came from. I used to be very much in favor of the death penalty. Like, yeah, just put them on a fucking conveyor belt and just shoot them as they come by. Have Gary Ploush do it for all I care. But I've softened on that as I've seen the horrors of the criminal justice system and the failure that it often can be. That's personally how my views have shifted on that over the several years that I went to law school, was a practicing attorney, and then have been doing this. That's where my views started to change on it. When I started to see the criminal justice system fail people, when I started to see how many people had reasonable doubt in their cases, see how many death row inmates are freed on reasonable doubt later. Timothy 208 says, did you hear about Biden's executive order on gun control? The process is going to be the punishment. Accused and convicted of a felony is going to make citizens ineligible for Second Amendment rights. Most people will plead out for lack of legal funding. Well, accused and convicted of a felony already makes you ineligible for Second Amendment rights, outside of a pardon and then a restoration of rights. So I'm not sure how that changes, but I'll take a look on it. We'll take a look at it in just a second, because I'm now interested in what that order actually says. But yeah, I mean, the criminal justice system, there's another one. The deprivation of rights involved in a conviction. Lots of people plea in the short term to deal with the fear of prison or incarceration. But in the long term, they're pleading for felonies that do deprive them of things like voting rights, of Second Amendment rights, and stuff like that. And they don't exercise their full defense. And it could be because, one, they can't afford it. Criminal defense is extremely costly. Two, it could simply be that threat, right? Well, if you go to trial, it's 60 years if you're guilty. If you don't go to trial and we plea it out, we can have you out in 5. Wait, what? Like the disparity, I can do 5 years, or I can risk doing the rest of my life effectively in prison. Which one do I choose? That's where a lot of people find themselves, and they end up pleading guilty to something, not necessarily because they're guilty. They plead guilty to avoid the real risk of the rest of their life being given to the state. And this all plays into just the failure of the criminal justice system in general. But yeah. Oh, shoot. Stephen Gosney was available for a little bit of death penalty talk, but I'll have to get him on during the day to talk about it. I'll have to get him on during the day, because Stephen Gosney, of course, is fully opposed to the death penalty. And he spends, a good portion of his time trying to fight against that on behalf of people. Like, that's his clientele, right? Are criminal cases, and trying to get them overturned on appeal. But yeah, it's a tough subject. Very, very sketchy subject in general. It's really, the parts of us say that person killed someone else. We want them dead. Like, we want to remove them from society. That's what's fair, and that's what's just. The logical, sort of slower part of us, when we get to it, says, maybe we should put that on hold for just a second, because maybe the process isn't perfect. Brian Nelson says, Washington State just passed the worst gun control legislation through their House of Representatives. Can you review the proposed law? Also, should I start building my guillotine in Minecraft? Only for the politicians, Brian. Let's see. Washington State House gun control. Votes to ban assault weapons 5 days ago, 6 days ago. This will be interesting. So, yeah, we can take a peek at this real quick. And then we'll move over to Rumble in just a minute. So this is Democrat-led Washington State House. Oh, excuse me. On Wednesday, approved an assault weapons ban, advancing a measure long sought by gun control advocates. Lawmakers passed the measure on a largely party line 55-42 vote. Seattle Times reported. The action Wednesday moved assault weapons ban further than it has advanced in 6 previous attempts. Now heads for the Senate, where Democrats also hold the majority. If the Senate approves it and it's signed into law, Washington would join 9 other states that have enacted laws generally banning the sale, manufacture, and transfer of assault weapons, according to the Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence. Democratic Governor Jay Inslee watched the vote in the chamber and called it very important. It's something that I believe since 1994, when I voted to make this federal law, said Inslee, who served in Congress before becoming governor, said the legislature had broken the NRA's lock on Washington and that the vast majority of Washingtonians support this common sense measure. With gun deaths hitting the highest mark seen in decades in the U.S., Democrats... Thanks, Chicago gang violence that often doesn't involve assault rifles or whatever an assault rifle actually is. Whatever moving target definition of assault weapon that they come up with. But yeah, thanks for that. That's not killing. That's not what's killing people. It's handguns almost entirely. Cryhard says Nick's that worn out hooker that sticks around after 4 a.m. to get baby formula. Hell yeah. There you go. That's an interesting comment and I love it. I'll take it. But yeah, how do we, they define the assault rifle as AR-15 styled rifles perfectly. Yes, that's it. Okay, in the U.S., Democrats in Washington state have flexed their majorities to push the assault weapon ban while advancing other gun restrictions, including a 10-day waiting period for purchases and a bill that would hold gun makers liable for negligent sales. So, negligent sales, okay. So you sell a gun and someone uses it to kill someone and that's your fault now, apparently, this has never been a theory of liability that has ever worked. Like if the gun functions and does what it's supposed to do, how do you have a negligent sale of a firearm? That doesn't make any fucking sense. The 10-day waiting period, of course, harms people who need defense now. That's who it harms, because the people who are going to murder someone, they can just murder someone. They usually already have a gun, can get a gun illegally, or they have no problem waiting the 10 days for their murder. But the person who needs defense now is subject to the attacker. They're not subject to their own plans. So they need the defense maybe before 10 days. Like, say, a husband beats up a wife, or a wife beats up a husband, threatens to take the kids. They get away. Person's tracking them. They need to get a gun to defend themselves against this monster because the police are not there when you need them to be. Well, wait 10 days. Oh, okay. I'll just tell my my murderous ex-spouse that they have to wait 10 days to attack me. Of course. During the debate on the assault weapons bill, Democrats spoke of mass shootings frequently carried out by men wielding assault-style weapons such as the AR-15s that have killed people in schools, churches, nightclubs, and grocery stores. State Rep Daria Farivar lamented a modern cycle of deaths, sadness, thoughts, and prayers, and then back to business. And again, the amazing thing is the likelihood of dying in a mass shooting incident in the United States that they're talking about. These media sensationalized mass events, which are, of course, horrifying. But the likelihood of dying in one of those it's like less than dying in an airplane crash. It's incredibly rare. And to have it done by an assault style weapon is even rarer. It's almost unfathomable how unlikely this is to happen to you. But we've perpetuated and created this irrational fear that by going out to a club or a store or to church that you are somehow at an imminent risk of dying by an assault rifle. That is irrational. You're much more likely to get into a car accident, die from Krispy Kreme infused diabetes, myocarditis. Oh, fuck. I'm on YouTube. You're much more likely to die of just about anything. You're more likely, by the way, walking down the street to be beaten to death than you are to be involved in a mass shooting incident. The amount of times that this happens, because it's always covered in the media in this sensational way, we go, oh my gosh, they're happening all over the place, all the time. They're happening actually quite rarely, and they're happening in disparate locations all over because the motivations for these things are so hard to actually peg down, right? Now, when you go, they of course conflate this data with mass shooting events that are compiled by non-government organizations that are advocating for gun control, but they compile mass shooting events. Now, mass shooting events, as they define them, usually involve a shooting involving 3 or more people. Not necessarily 3 or more dead people, but a shooting involving 3 or more people. Or maybe it's 3 or more injuries. I don't know. The definition's nebulous. I believe the FBI categorizes a mass shooting event as a mass shooting involving 4 dead people, including the shooter, or potentially including the shooter. So they have different categories for this. The problem that we have is that in Chicago, in New Orleans, in Detroit, in Houston, in LA, in New York, you will have Washington, D.C., in Baltimore, really fucking bad cities. You will have mass shootings happen all the time. You know, they say a mass shooting occurs every day or more than there. But these are not mass shootings that kill multiple people. They're mass shootings that involve multiple people. And it's that first softest definition ever. These are almost always related to gang violence, family killings, or drug violence. That's just how it goes, because there's lots of people around in these scenarios. But all of those motivations are different. Now, when we're talking about someone going into a school, that is not comparable to a homie shooting up some dude infringing on his turf without a condom or whatever. Like, that is a different thing. That is of a different nature than a liquor store robbery gone wrong. When someone walks into a school and shoots it out. When some guy climbs up in a building in Las Vegas and starts shooting at a country music concert. That's different than someone walking into a school and shooting a bunch of kids. And they can't be categorized and classified in the same way. And trying to solve the problem by banning a long rifle is not going to solve that problem. It never was. But you're much more at risk of general randomized violence involving a knife or a handgun or a hammer or fists or feet than you are of dying in a mass shooting involving an AR-style rifle. All right, let's see what else this thing has. She said she has experienced a shooter lockdown and she decried the fearful reality faced by school children. The fearful reality faced by school children is a fearful fiction created by politicians and administrators who act in defiance of reality constantly. All of these places have better measures to defend children than banning guns, because banning guns doesn't actually do it. Banning guns isn't going to stop the guns that already exist being used in a mass shooting. Banning guns is not criminalizing the possession of a gun, is not going to stop the person who's going to murder people. It just isn't going to do that. There are common sense solutions to school violence. One of them is, you know, having actual locked down school buildings with actual security. We spend enough money on school administration that we could hire private security, public security. We could pay police officers. There are simple answers, like there are these cool door locks that make it so they can't actually, like, once a lockdown is initiated, all these door locks, and they keep someone from shooting their way into a classroom. There's all sorts of stuff. Potentially letting school staff carry, if they have requisite training, qualifications for it and want to do it. There are all sorts of ways to reduce school gun violence. And banning guns is one of the least effective way to do it. Republicans argued the ban violates the federal and state constitutions, predicted it would be overturned. And also, yes, under New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus versus Bruin, not Van Bruin, just Bruin. Under Bruin, I talked about this the other day. We're going to see pushes on both sides of gun control legislation We're going to see pushes from the Democrat side on pushing the boundaries of what can be banned. And then that will force the hand of state courts, federal courts, and ultimately the Supreme Court to further clarify what Bruin means. And really, the National Firearms Act is on the chopping block. It's got to be. It clearly violates the Bruin standard that was set out. And this here will definitely violate the Bruin standard. There's not a long and storied history in American jurisprudence of banning a particular type of gun. Like that doesn't exist. It does not go back to 1790 in the way that it would need to satisfy Bruin. But we'll see if the Supreme Court sticks to their guns, stupid pun intended, on this issue, or whether they puss out on it. We have no idea what they'll end up doing. Timberwolf Sniper says, "Hey, Nick, thanks for making work bearable. I found a bottle of Nika from the barrel for $70. I like it and was wondering if you have any suggestions for other good whiskeys between $70 and $150. Yes, a ton of them. One of my favorite bottles is Angel's Envy Finished Rye. It's about $100. It's more expensive than their bourbon. It's also significantly better. Joseph Magnus is a $125 bottle of bourbon. That is fantastic. If you can find one of these, this is $65. This barrel strength Penelope. This is great. I'm really, really enjoying this. A great whiskey. $65. $60 to $70 barrel Dovetail. This is 61% liquor. This will knock you on your ass really quickly, but it's very smooth and very, very good. So there's some recommendations for you. You like, what was that you liked? Oh, you like the Japanese whiskeys. Yeah, Hibiki Suntory Harmony whiskey, I think, is about $80 to $90 if you can find it. That's a great bottle. I think I enjoyed the Toki. Japanese whiskeys have a very specific character to them. That's why I'm recommending Japanese whiskeys here. The Toki whiskey was good. I think that was about $60. If you can find a Yamazaki 12-year, I think that's around $120. That's a great bottle. Those are really difficult to find, though. But yeah, there you go. Timberwolf Sniper. Okay, back to this thing. Here we go. They also contend it would not stop criminals or prevent mass shootings while infringing on the rights of law-abiding people seeking to defend their families. That's 100% true. Which bottle tastes the best? Oh, you know, Stan. Whatever bottle you have is the one that tastes the best. Firearms are the great equalizer, said State Rep Travis Couture, touting their use to defend against all sorts of predators. Bill lists more than 50 specific gun models that would be banned from future sales in the state, including military-style weapons such as AR-15s, AK-47s, and M16s. It also lists characteristics of prohibited firearms such as semi-automatic rifles with a length of less than 30 inches, and those that have detachable magazines or fixed magazines with a capacity of 10 rounds or more. So if you can load more than 10 rounds in, that's too much. Lawmakers have advanced the firearm restrictions as part of a package announced in December by Inslee and Attorney General Bob Ferguson. The State House this week passed the House Bill 1143 requiring a 10-day waiting period and safety training before all gun purchases. They also had been required for semi-automatic rifles, or they had already been required for semi-automatic rifles. State Senate last week approved a bill that would give Washington Attorney General's office the authority to hold gun manufacturers or sellers liable for gun sales that result in weapons landing in the hands of criminals or mass shooters. Which, how could you possibly do that? Remember that Adam Lanza murdered his mom and stole her gun to commit his crimes. Like, how is that a like how is that a gun manufacturer or gun seller's fault? That Adam Lanza goes crazy, kills his mom, takes her gun, and goes and murders children. How the fuck is that anybody's fault except the crazy murderer? But, you know, that's just Goodfella D over on Rumble says, I talked my buddy into buying Barrel Dovetail based off Nick's review, and they said it was like prison toilet hooch and burn like hell. Nick keeps saying it goes down smooth. Goodfella D, let me humbly suggest that your friend is a pussy. There you go. That's what we got for you, brother. I'm sorry to say it. You gotta try it for yourself. For 61% alcohol, a whiskey, I mean, goes down pretty damn smooth. Okay. All right. With that, look, you're in Washington State, and you may not be able to get your hands on an assault rifle for a little while. So what you have to do is go to the next best thing in home defense, which is the TacRite mini chainsaw. Look, if you cannot blast the balls off of your intruder, why don't you chop them off with a handheld chainsaw? Grab two, go into each armpit, go for the eyes, go for the neck, go for the groin, whatever you need. The TacRite mini chainsaw is here, and you can get it at TacRiteKnows.com, which is linked in the description to both of these live streams. You just go in, look, someone sneaks into your house and you're like, oh my God, Jay Inslee banned guns. Whatever will I do? I will inflict maximum devastation. And you charge and bum rush, you knock them down, and you start chopping limbs off like a motherfucking space marine. That's what this was made for specifically. I talked to the owner, and he said, actually, I made this to dismember intruders. None of that is true, but I wish it was. The TacRite mini chainsaw is there to help you tackle those around the house projects that you don't want to wield like a giant fucking chainsaw. It's like, 3-4 feet long. They weigh 25 pounds. They got gas in them. You get tired like chopping up above your head or doing stuff with them. This is a real easy thing. It's an 88-volt battery that slaps onto the bottom just like a handheld drill or whatever, and lets you go tackle those small projects, right? If you're pruning a tree or you got just a couple of troublesome branches you need to get rid of, this thing's great for dealing with that. The TacRite mini chainsaw. Check it out. Great to have them sponsoring the show. TacRiteKnows.com. Get yourself a little bit of a discount. And with that, we're going to read the rest of the super chats here on YouTube and then move over to Rumble. All right. Cult of Personality says, yo, Nick, can I get a toast? It's my 29th birthday today. Enjoying Angels Envy ride to celebrate. Curious if you're going to react to Jon Stewart talking with an Oklahoma senator being a turd about the Second Amendment. Not familiar with it, but we could probably do that over on Rumble. But I'll get you a little toast, brother. All right. Cult of Personality, 29 years old. Interesting place to be for a man, in my opinion. You are sure of yourself. You're probably working in the direction that you plan to go with your career. You're probably moving towards whatever your vision of family and future is fervently at this point in time. You're cemented in your path. However, there's a whole lot of roadblocks in your way, and one of them is that 2 at the beginning of your age. And it's really a shame for men that this happens this way, but that tends to be a hang-up. So as you enter this 29th year, please look upon any frustrations and setbacks that you have with some skepticism, and know that as you churn over the odometer to the 30 number next year and each year after that, your ability to get the things done that you've been wanting to do for years will magically increase. Cheers to you on this journey. Enjoy the last year of your 20s and then never look at them again, because you're a man. Getting older is actually pretty fucking awesome. Go get it, brother. Happy birthday. Let's see. Jessica Reloaded says, baby rackets. Oh, she's so freaking cute. That one, that little 5-year-old, she has stolen my cold heart of stone and warmed it up to be something actually that that exists and beats again. Boogie 34 says rackets. Bogey 34. Rackets. Oh, the little ones. Real Hydro PX says you held on to that crowd fund like a fat kid holds a cake. Yeah, I could have started it a long time ago, but I was really hoping to not, like, in all honesty, I didn't want to do it. I wanted this thing to just get done with, but and be gone. But it's really fucking expensive. It's absurd. Hey, y'all says, please react to the DOJ trying to take Alex Jones's cat. Wait, what? Okay. We're going to fucking talk about that when we get over to Rumble. Holy shit. Tammy Bain says Blanche Taylor Moore is still on death row in North Carolina at age 90. She's been there for 32 years, probably killed 4 more people. Last husband survived. I've told this story before. My mom was on a death row case down in Houston, and it was a capital murder case, and they convicted the guy and sentenced him to death. I mean, he executed he executed the manager of McDonald's while robbing the place. He set the guy, this on camera. He had the guy get down on his knees, put his hands behind his head. He put the gun to the back of his head and pulled the trigger. Killed him. No question. And that guy is walking the streets now. He's free. He's free. So, you know, this is actually one of the problems with the death penalty sentence in general, is that it ends up with this cycle of appeals and all of this protection that goes in. I didn't even really get into this aspect of it. It's often more expensive to kill someone than to keep them around forever. But this particular guy, yeah, he luckily, he was going to be executed several years ago. But he luckily got stabbed in the prison yard right before he was to be executed. So they had to let him heal up from the stabbing so they could kill him, because that makes a ton of sense. And in that time, an appeal was made that said that he wasn't competent to stand trial. And the reason for his incompetence apparently was actually some evidence that was used against him. His goal was to rob the McDonald's to get enough money to flee to Mexico, to get on a plane to go to Iran to fight in the Islamic Revolution of the 80s. He wanted to bring Iran into Muhammad's vision of Iran that we have now. Like, if you look at Iran in the 70s, it was like a pretty normal, like a westernized country. And then there was a revolution in the 80s, and they went back into full on deep Islam, right? And he wanted to go participate in that. And so he had written these poems about like Muslim imagery, passages from the Quran. I wanted to go join the glorious revolution. And they used those poems to show that he was not mentally fit to stand trial, which doesn't make any fucking sense to me. But that's how they were able to do that. And this attorney came around while he was healing up for his execution. It's kind of crazy how that works out. But yeah, he's free now. He's just out in the world. Straight up murdered a guy to try and go kill more people. That was his whole purpose. Billy the Kid Lawrence says, my mom passed away Christmas week 2019. Ronnie Radke had tried to help save my mom's life donating to her GoFundMe. She may have died in the end, but I will never forget that. My favorite artist and one of my heroes. Damn, that is awesome. Cheers to your mom, Billy. Sorry to hear that. That's a loss that doesn't go away, man. But yeah, he seems like a cool dude, and I would love to talk to him. Let's see. Kyan Rennell says, can you set up a Give Send Go fund for DSP's mortgage? No, if DSP wants some help on his mortgage, he could just ask. Toxic says, even in my online classes, they show how obesity is a higher killer than any other ways of dying. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's heart disease and obesity in general, fucking devastating to our fat country. Hartman says, what happens in the next 5 to 10 years when someone is sentenced to death from deep fake video evidence? Deep fakes are going to be a big fucking challenge. A big fucking challenge. We're going to need exquisite technology, and they're going to have to develop strong jurisprudence around deepfakes. Because right now, if a deepfake were to come in, you would have to hire an expert to prove that that was fake. Think about that. And you think the state doesn't have access to deepfaking tools? You'd have to hire an expert like to do a pixel analysis or whatever and prove the deepfake was not real. And your expert would be up against the state's expert who would say that it was real. That's a crazy idea to have to fight literal bullshit. And our courts are not prepared to do that. Well, it's a fact question as to whether or not it's real. No, it's not a fact question when you have a deep-faked AI-generated video. We're going to have to figure out how to deal with that. The Hollow Wait says, I've already been hoodwinked by a deep fake of me. Oh, God. Oh, I was really dehydrated today. It was crazy. Angry Goat says 10-day waiting period would make sense if that included background check and mental health records check, but HIPAA laws say no. Will that ever change? First of all, I'm not quite sure what you mean by HIPAA laws saying no. They certainly can check for any institutionalization of someone, and do in the background check. Here's the issue that I have. The idea that, how do I word this? A mental health suspicion is not enough for me to deprive someone of their rights. This is why I'm blanket opposed to red flag laws for this reason. It's not enough for me to say that person might be crazy. You're going to need to show me why a person's rights need to be deprived from them. And I currently don't think we do that. Right now, we do it in reverse order. We go and we confiscate their guns, or we put a restraining order on them and then make them fight to get it back. I don't think that's how our nation's supposed to work. So I don't like this mental health records check idea. If it's beyond, were they institutionalized? Are they currently under some sort of order or treatment program that would prevent them from having a gun? And I'm not entirely sure that's constitutional either. If we want that, we might need to change the Constitution. I'm not quite sure we want it. Christian Wolf says, the Tack Right Mini Chainsaw, perfect for all your Xenos, Heretic, and Demon needs. Get yours today. Hartman says, and against a technology illiterate judge. Yeah, that's the deep fake issue. Again, how the fuck? Like, we saw what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse and Judge Schrader. Judge Schrader had no idea how to deal with interpolation of pixels on a zoomed in image that is being displayed on like a 4K screen, but was shot in 720p. Shane Bell says, if you live in California or other hellholes, black powder doesn't have waiting period. Not a lawyer, and I don't play one on TV. Almanac 13, thank you for the donation. And with that, we are good on the YouTube super chats, and we are going to now move over to Rumble exclusively. The link to Rumble is in the description on YouTube if you want to join us over there. If you don't want to join us over there, thank you so much for watching the first chunk of the show, and I will see you guys hopefully tomorrow. There's some big topics out there. I might need to talk to Megan Fox about some of this grooming shit that's going on. But we'll be covering all of it. Okay. So, I'll see you on Rumble. 2, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for always watching. Please click like on your way out. Kind of like ringing the tip bell or whatever on your way out at a shitty restaurant. All right, guys. Thanks a bunch for hanging out. We'll see you over on Rumble. Peace. Peace.
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen,